Peace, everyone. How y'all doing? What's up, Cherie?
Hey, what's up, everybody? What's up to Dare to Struggle, Dare to Win? Welcome, welcome. We don't have the intro music for y'all today because we got some technicalities happening. Our usual soundboard comrade Geechia isn't here, but you have me, Cherie Danielle. You also have special guest today, Lyric, aka Josh.
What's up, everybody? How you doing? I'm filling in for Geechee today. I have not mastered the board yet, but we're gonna make it work.
I feel like I want to do the theme song and see if I know the words. It's like I go harder the dun the dun 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 dun. But you used to sit in the stands, take the bass out your voice, something 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 dun dun dun. Dare to struggle, dare to win. No, that I feel like I try. I
I can't,
try.
I can't, I can't do skip. So I'm gonna let you handle that. I'm
I
gonna
feel
let
like
my
I should freestyle. If I freestyle, maybe it'll make up for the fact
it,
that
it's something about hold on, you missed two though. There was something about talking buffet. He ain't even got no potluck.
we ain't
God
even got
bless the
no
child
problem.
who got his
Yeah.
own to rock up, or
Uh,
something like that.
Uh, yeah, we on Black Liberation Media. It's not something like Expedia. It's F capitalism because we don't got a spism, gizm, barism. No remix morning show, even though Josh is on the mic. But still, we don't mess with Killer Mike because some of his stuff just not right. He ain't got his politics tight. He needs to get a little on site, but we back on, and I'ma keep spitting since we ain't got no intro song, and y'all could play along. Boom.
Wow. Wow. Clip it. New intro. Skips out. Peace, everybody.
Peace, peace.
We got
Yeah, we bringing you these Black radical politics from CMB Vantage Point. We got Josh on here. We know y'all are politicized here at Black Liberation Media. But if you have a friend, a comrade, a best friend, a significant other, anybody that you want to talk more Black radical politics about, please share this link. And yeah, so I mean, I know we were just kind of BSing for a moment, but how you doing, Josh?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. Happy to be here. Happy to be able to fill in. It's the middle of the week, but I can't wait because holidays coming up. This is right around the corner. I didn't even notice how close Christmas was. I was like, oh man, that's a week away if you don't got those gifts. If you do that, if you celebrate, for those who celebrate. Yeah, it's about that time.
Yeah.
But I'm chilling otherwise. Programming is slowed down in Miami, so I'm just trying to wrap up some projects before the year's out. What you up to?
I'm like opposite of chilling. I was chilling for a month because I got fired, so I was like unemployed, just living life, living free, like how I would be if I wasn't a slave under this condition of capitalism and had to work. So, yeah, so I went back to work this week. I started my new job on Monday. And so now I've been working, and it don't really feel like the end of the year because it's like most times this is where people are starting to take their little breaks and get close to the holidays and whatnot. But I'm starting a job around this time, so it's a little ironic. But I mean, it's work from home, it's remote, so I mean,
Okay.
kind of like. But even with remote, I usually be like really just on autopilot by this point. But I really got to clock in, so I don't get fired like I got fired from the last job. But so far so good. These people feel like yeah, they can work with me. I feel like, okay. Like they're relaxed. I knew the job was gonna be like a good place when the interviewer was smoking during my job interview. I was like, oh, this
Smoking what?
he had a vape,
Oh, babe.
but he was smoking his vape pen during my job interview, and that's when I knew. I was like, I'm definitely saying yes to this company because they don't
Clearly not.
yeah. I was like, this is the place for me. They seem like the standards are very low here. So so I'm excited. I'm like, oh yes. I just need something for some income while I continue to do all my work on the ground and create
Hmm.
my revolutionary art. It's always so funny at these jobs too. They're always like asking stuff about who you are outside of work. And me, I feel like I always overshare because it's like I'll be like, yeah, I make art. I used to do stand up. I organize, and they'll be like, oh, we have to see some of the stand up. You have to share it in the chat. And I'm like, hell no,
Nah, nah,
see my
I'm a
stand.
ghost.
They'd be like, share some clips of your solo show, and I'm like, hell no, you can't see no clips of my solo show. Y'all can't know I'm a communist. Like what? The heck?
Everything is quiet. Nobody knows.
Yeah,
No, no, no.
I
We
can't support you,
coworkers.
but I gotta. It's like a code I gotta keep every time. But it's funny because I be saying everything and nothing at the same time. They're like, "What books are you reading right now?" I'm like, "I'm reading a book about a guy named Hubert Harrison. He's like a
Yeah.
forgotten figure of the Harlem Renaissance." I just be like, "Oh, that's interesting. That sounds really."
Hide in plain sight. That's how it works. 100%. They don't know what it is. I told somebody about Walter Rodney. They're like, ah, yeah, that sounds cool, man. I was like, yeah.
Yeah, I'm
So you
always hiding in plain sight. It's so funny. But it's just funny, like, even like they asked a question yesterday in one of our meetings of like, what did they say? They were like, if you didn't have to work for money, like what would you be doing right now? And of course, everybody's like, I'd be on some luxurious vacation on a beach or something. And I'm like, I'd be doing the exact same thing I'd be doing right now. I just wouldn't have to make time to be here. and
Yep.
I said it in a really respectful way, but like they were like, "Oh," I was like, "Yeah, I'd be doing, my art, my community work. I'd be doing all that stuff. I just wouldn't do this. Like,
Imagine that.
like that's interesting."
Yeah, like what? You don't want to be a passport, bro? You don't want to go around the world and live off of other people? That's not your plan? Man, yeah, I mean, I think that's part of we talk about the transformation a lot, but I think that's a big part of it is like recognizing, oh, wow, the world would work if I didn't have to make somebody rich every single day. Like people would still create art and invent things and go places. And this whole idea that we wouldn't do things is always hilarious to me. So I think the fact that you live a life that's full without work already speaks to that. It's a
Yeah.
luxury, because some people don't get to do that. I completely understand that. Like Jared always talks about how he had to work one of these 9 to 5s, and he was like, "This just ain't for me. Like I can't do this." So he had to find another way. So I completely understand when people got those jobs, those 10 to 12 hour shifts,
Mm.
6 days a week. I'm just like,
Mm.
yeah, that's just working to survive. So.
Yeah, I think yeah, it is quite. And then another thing too is there was this answer that people kept giving about like if you could go anywhere, like people would say I go anywhere, then people would be like, oh, I want to travel here, but then they were like, but I also want to travel. I had two people that were like, I also want to travel to like a less fortunate country, like a third world country, just to show people or just to show my kids and stuff how lucky they are that they were born in the country they were born in and how hard it is other places, so they don't take it for granted. And I just
Baby, they shooting up your kids' schools. Like what you you in the less fortunate country, bro. Your
But yeah, they
kids.
said it twice, and I'm just like sitting there smiling the whole time, like they don't have no clue, bro. It's just
No.
like it's like how lucky, like it's just like the places just became unfortunate on their own. Nobody came in and
Yeah.
sucked them of their resources. It's like, and then but the thing is like they like teaching their kids humility. So it's like I'm trying to teach my kid a good thing. People have it less, but it's like there's no thought of like why do they have it harder there or why.
No. No.
And I just
It just happened.
it just happened. They just were born unfortunate. Like people are
Yeah.
just born unfortunate. It's not calculated. It's not literally the foundation of the American system. Like it's just unfortunate. So I just
Yeah, and I think we're going to get into today with this topic about consumerism because all of it is related to just having this Disneyfied, like Hollywood view of the world, essentially. Um, I think even about how primed people are to accept narratives about Maduro and things like that because They just know from media. What do we know about Venezuela? Latin American dictator. That's what Hollywood shows me every single time. What was the movie I just saw? Suicide Squad or whatever. It's the same kind of thing. It's just generic brown man in dictator suit is Castro or Chavez or something like that. And you go buy your movies, and then you go to Venezuela for your trip, and that's about it. Like it's no kind of analysis of how people actually live in these countries, you know.
Yeah, it's like no one knows. And then David brought up a good point too. It's like there's not tons of people hurting right here.
Oh no, yeah, that's what I'm saying.
It's like the and it's that you're not hurting right now. Like if you didn't get this job that you just started Monday, like what is your next move? Like it's just this kind of like I don't know. I just think all of it's interesting. But yeah, they've been having some interesting conversations on TikTok and debates about those things too, about China, Korea, all this stuff, and just like our just lack of information. And even the people that think they really understand what's happening, how they still can be just a product of propaganda. But speaking of propaganda, I think our guest is here and he's ready to come in so we can really kind of dive into the discussion. I guess we don't have the transition song where people grab a snack and whatnot. We don't have that today, so I guess we're just gonna let him come on. But you can play my links though, right, Josh?
Absolutely, that
Okay.
I can do.
Okay, but we're just gonna bring Stephen in, our special guest from the Black Alliance for Peace.
What's up? What's up? Can y'all hear me?
Yes, we can. What's up, Steven?
What's
What's
up, Stephen?
good? What's good? I appreciate. I'm glad. I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me on. Um, yeah, take me away. I'm not good at these.
Now we got you.
Let's get to the business.
So yeah, with it being a particular time of year, I just noticed certain trends that have been happening online and even amongst different circles of people on the ground. And I particularly see this a lot with newer organizers. And I feel like even I have kind of evolved in my knowledge or being able to be scientific when it comes to my approach and thoughts on consumerism. But I guess that to me, I guess what made me want to have this conversation is that there seems to be like this huge push when it comes to the online left and whatnot about like emphasizing the responsibilities that we have as consumers. And you see a lot of creators where like their whole brand is all the brands that you should be boycotting, and every day it's like, this is the new store that did this, boycott this. I found out this app is connected to AI, guys, we have to boycott this guy. And like it's kind of like this shaming of consumers, basically, of like, well, why are you sharing your Spotify top listens? You shouldn't have Spotify is horrible and exploits people. Like, why are we still buying presents for Christmas? Like we shouldn't be doing any of these things. And I guess I understand the frustration. I understand coming into an understanding of the ridiculousness of capitalism, but it seems to me like there's missing pieces when it comes to how we actually work towards ending capitalism. And what I see mostly is like, it seems like it's more of an individual online, talking about specific boycotts and even in groups, like even newer organizers, where they feel like there's this individual thing that they have to do that they're not doing because they're still shopping here and have to run in Target to do this and have to do all these things, where they almost don't see the work that they're actually doing, when it comes to doing a mutual aid program or, studying in political education and getting a stronger foundation. They don't somewhat see that as valuable as, I can boycott all these things. So I just was like, I want to have a real conversation about consumerism and its power and just the dialectics of it all. And you're somebody who's really well versed in dialectical materialism, so I just thought you'd be the best person to have on here. And I do have a clip that I want to play that I think better describes kind of something that I'm kind of just frustrated with seeing. So I guess Josh can go ahead and play the clip too.
Okay. I got us. One moment. Okay. Well, wait. Gotta restart it. Hold on. All right.
Thanksgiving, while the American economy is at an all-time low, while inflation is on the rise. This is quite literally the worst economic year for a lot of Americans, right? US consumers, they spent $6.4 billion on Thanksgiving. And on Black Friday, $11.8 billion. Both record highs. And actually a significant jump from last year's numbers. Consumerism here in America over Thanksgiving weekend was so profitable, it was so successful that Forbes can only report one negative thing, which was that the order volume fell by 1%. Meanwhile, the average prices was up 7% because of inflation. Things were actually more expensive, and you guys still went out and bought. And you want to know why I'm ticked off by these numbers, by this news? Because consumer spending accounts for 2/3 of economic activity. 2/3 of economic activity. This was the one time for us United States consumers. It didn't matter what your race was, what your age was, what your gender was, your sexuality. You understand? Even your political party. This was the one time for all of us to be on one accord and to show the higher ups, you understand, those that are oppressing us, the 1%, that we won't be taken advantage of anymore. This was the one time for us to band together. And this was the example that I needed to remind me why I hate group projects. This is why I hate group projects. Because while all of us, majority of us Black people, were not spending, us immigrants, migrants, were not spending in solidarity, middle America, the majority of America, went out and spent $6.4 billion on Thanksgiving Day and then $11.8 billion on Black Friday. This is why I don't like group projects. The worst thing about it is that the retailers actually, they were prepared for a decline. They were anticipating a decline, a boycott. And instead, they saw from their data that Black Friday spending grew around 3.1% with volumes rising by around 0.2%. Y'all gave them more money. After this entire year of them taking from you, you gave them more money, more power so that they can continue to oppress you. A quick citing of my sources, the numbers are coming from Adobe Analytics, they're coming from Forbes, they're also coming from Global Data Retail. And according to senior economists at Ninja Trader, most lies with the youth as younger shoppers financing purchases on mobile devices drove transaction counts.
And you got to blame the youth at the end.
So, yeah, so I just thought, and I see a lot of videos made similar to this where, this one she did try to give, people of color credit and stuff and like, oh, well, y'all are attempting to do this. But even I see other videos that are the equivalent, but are like, kind of targeting Black people and still being like, but I know Black people are still buying. And I see Black people in the stores. Why are y'all in the stores? Why are y'all buying stuff? And so I guess I'm just this anger at the consumer and just like what it actually does as far as on the larger scale of ending capitalism. I'm just trying to get a dialectical basis of this. So you can open with your comments, Stephen.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. And also just to give an actual proper introduction of myself. Peace, everybody. My name is Stephen. I organize with the Black Alliance for Peace and one of the co-coordinators of the Atlanta Citywide Alliance. In my day job, I work in the tech industry. I'm a product designer. So I have a little bit of insight into some of this stuff. Yeah, that is, there was truth to like what was being said in that video, but then there's also like a lot of, she touched on it multiple times or like more than once of like mentioning that volumes goes down, but revenue goes up. And that just means people are paying for more, but they're getting less, right? That has been a consumer-wide trend for the last 10 years of, if you look at the movie industry, like movie theaters, right? Same difference. You look at video games, same difference. It's people are buying more, but like the actual volume, like less movie tickets are sold today than they were like 10, 15 years ago. but because the price is going up, it makes the amount of revenue going up. So, and what I was hoping she was going to mention is a lot of this is actually being driven by credit. So the Klarnas, the Afterpays, uh, just about down, damn near every single one of them, right, has like some sort of, split it up in payments. And the other key thing about it to know about, I don't know when I signed up for the group project. I don't know when y'all signed up for the group project. I don't like being signed up for stuff that like, are we getting graded? Because I don't know about your work. But the amount of most of the consumer spending right now in the United States, and we can get into this, a little bit later, but most of the spending right now is happening by like the top 10%, like of earners, right? Like the 90% of the vast majority of people, they're the ones who are cutting back on the DoorDashes, the Ubers, the Black Friday spending, the et cetera. Like poor and working class people, they already cutting back because they don't got no choice to. But most of the spending right now, most of that growth is being driven by people who, again, like by the top 10%, like earners. And that right now is that's a very shrinking, part of the pie, because what we're seeing right now in the larger economic trends is everybody's getting pressed, getting squeezed. So soon enough, it ain't gonna be no money on the table, right? Except for the 1%, of which we're on the same page when it comes to that, right? Like but there's a lot of other details in there that I think deserve some scrutiny.
Um, I have a follow-up question, Cherie, unless you have another one.
Yeah, no, you can go ahead.
Cool. Yes, speaking of things that deserve more scrutiny, so I was curious what your thoughts are on things like the boycott. I saw Pastor Jamal Bryant and the Target boycott get brought up a lot. I think it's related to some of the thinking that the sister was sharing about our consumer power and so on. So I was just curious if you saw any relationships there or how you'd break that down.
Well, so with consumer boycotts, I'm definitely of one to say I don't want to be too categorical and say that a boycott don't ever work. But in the realm of consumer boycotts, it's always about, to me, it's always a strategical thing. Is whatever your goal is, whatever your objective is this boycott going to get you the goods? And if that's just, let's pressure this one company, let's for something like a Target boycott, to me that's just like that is some petty booge stuff, because that's who's going to Target, or that's who's making like. And listen, I went to college twice, so I seen the types. The one who be calling Target, like, this is stuff for the TV pastors, the academics, the corporate risers and strivers, like the Al Sharptons, like the people on MSNBC. Like, these are the people who want you to care about a consumer boycott, because they're the ones who shop at the Target. And they're the ones who kind of like have this idea of, like this myth of the black buying power. By the way, if y'all, I'm sure many of y'all are already hip, but y'all's colleague on Black Liberation Media, Dr. Jared Ball, the myth of black buying power, like, get into that, because this stuff has already been studied, already been constructed, it already been like, so I'll say historically, right, when you have things like, let's say like the Montgomery boycott, right? It wasn't just like, oh, we wasn't about to go ride the buses no more. Like, they were organizing carpools. They were organizing alternatives to the boycott, because not only was transportation one, like, that goes beyond just like, like the stuff you buy at the store, but because, there was actual like organization to turn whatever that, boycotting action of, which was to apply pressure against the target. And they actually have to like organize for like specific goals and demands. I don't even know what the objectives are with like these target boycotts of, well, what you want people to do. Like, is you can turn Target into the circuit cities, the Kmart's, the Babies R Us, the Toys R Us, you can turn them, like, retailers will come and go. So what are the boycotts like actually trying, like, how does that build us power? That's first of all, how does it build us power? And second of all, is it even actually effective? Because, and this will be the last thing I'll say on the point, like, if you actually, like, I think one thing that we really have to do, like, for anybody who wants to do, I don't care what your politics are, right? You should want whatever your politics are, you should want them to be effective. When you actually like look at the broader macroeconomic trends, and you see, you might see a headline and say like, oh, Target numbers are down, or what's the other, like, Starbucks is another good example, right? Because they were also the target of a boycott. People will look at those numbers and then go like, oh, we did it, the boycott is working, we're winning. But like, no, everybody's just getting broke. Like, no, like, the money is running out, right? So we can't ascribe like falsehoods to, like, we can't lie about, like, not only is your boycott like not actually driving that behavior, it's also like not effective in the first place. Like, again, how does it build its power? So I think it's important to if you are going to do a boycott, have it be, hopefully like something locally driven and not a multinational corporation. And two, to actually understand of, well, is this organized action, like, are the effects that I'm seeing in the real world actually the result of my organized actions? And I think a lot what we see, especially like on the social media, because it's so easy to build a narrative on the social media, so easy to build a narrative on the Instagram, so easy to build a narrative on that on the TikTok of, oh, go look at these things, I got my sources. But then when you actually look at the financial reports, because you can't just look at the financial reports for one, you got to go look at it for a lot. You got to look at what the economy is doing, and what the economy is doing is contracting. So all in all, I think people are better suited to spend their political activity and organized activity in efforts other than boycotts. But, if you're pro-Black, I'm pro-Black too. We just like figure out how we be a little bit more effective about some of this stuff,
Yeah, I think that cause and effect is where a lot of people are confused, as you were saying. Because I'm looking, when you say people have their sources, I'm thinking of, well, what would my mama do? She'd probably go Google something, right? And then you see things like this, for example, another one like this, where he says, that it's working. And so I think you were very clear on like, well, why is it not working? And so in this, I think he specifically says things like that, the most successful boycott in 70 years. So it's very market driven kind of way he's spinning it. But I think he already says he's not exaggerating either. They've lost 1 billion in valuation. Their stock tumbled from 145 to $93. The CEO's salary was cut by 43%. So I guess these are the explicit things they're claiming they won through the boycott. And I think you were already leading us toward the economy is shrinking. So maybe you could just guide us by what do you mean by that? I think Leah said this is why the budget was passed, not because of an organized boycott, but because people wouldn't have had money to buy anything. So can you just maybe talk us through the economy shrinking, like you just said, and why these things aren't related?
Yeah. Where to start? Okay, so basically, if you were alive and an adult and for the 2008 recession, which was the subprime mortgage, housing crisis, which is basically starting in the late 90s, early 2000s, America, we're going to use big A America, was like, oh, we gotta juice the spending, so they made credit very easily available, right? So this credit was then used. Banks and other financial institutions, they're giving out mortgages to everybody, and eventually they're giving out mortgages to people who they know cannot pay back those mortgages, right? So there's a over leveraging here of the institutionally, structurally, there's too much credit being given out, and now, and eventually that's going to come home to roost because somebody's bills got to get paid, right? So what we're seeing right now is, and for in 2000, late 2007, it's almost like literally very much kind of like we're basically right now in the 2007 moment, right? We're like in December 2007 right now. What happens? People feel like the houses can't, the mortgages can't be paid. Turns out a bunch of people was betting on those mortgages being paid. Some people were getting paid on the mortgages not getting paid. The economy like tumbles. Now we go through all that. To draw the point to like the similarities between today. So you have a lot of different. You basically have the same thing, which is credit has been so accessible. This is why you're seeing like the buy now, pay later. This is why, like the rise of the Klarnas, the Afterpays, et cetera, right? The credit cards, all that stuff is just sort of like it has been like a snowball effect since about, since about on the other side of, the 2008 recession, right? And that has now led to, minimum wage is still $7.25, but rent, insurance, cost of living, all that stuff has gone up. So what we're seeing here now is, I mentioned this at the beginning, right? Like a lot of the spending, like Black Friday spending went up, but that's because food got to be put on the table. But also it's not the same, like they're not getting the same amount because there ain't no money to go around. So
you're saying fewer people are buying more expensive stuff, essentially. So that's why the numbers are going down in terms of how much they're buying, but because it's more expensive, those few people are going to make the revenue go up. Am
yes,
I understanding that correctly? Okay.
yes, and then like the broader and the broader economic to again like draw a point like the comparison here is you now have America, the United States is a very financialized economy, and by like financialized, what I mean is everybody is dealing on credit. So you can see this in consumer credit, which is what we've kind of like been discussing up to this point. You also see it in AI, right? You see it in there's a cars, the car market. That's also another bubble. You now have the student loans, which very recently, they took away a number of protections or a number of like policies that were implemented, like I think as a part of as a part of COVID. That just went away like a couple months ago. So you have like 4 or 5 different bubbles in there, and all of them represent of money that has been lended or something has been lended, and nobody, everybody reaching for their pocket, and they ain't gonna have no pocket. They ain't had nothing to cash out on. So that's why when you see, and this will be the last point, right? When you go look at the stock market, the U.S. stock market, you look at the S&P 500 Standard & Poor's is basically an index of these are the 500 most valuable countries or valuable companies in the country. You have like what's now called the Magnificent Seven, and the Magnificent Seven is like Apple. Apple, Amazon, Google, Nvidia. I'm probably missing a couple of ones. It's the big ones, right? It's those big players. When you look at all of the growth in the country, like all the growth, like in the stock market, like the overwhelming, like if you took away the Magnificent Seven, we've been in a recession since like the beginning of this year, right? If you took away those 7 companies and their stonks and their growth, we would be like, everybody else is doing poorly, very, very, very poorly, right? So we don't have all the time to get into the nuances of the, because I could start going about, U.S. Treasury bonds and all that stuff, but that's basically what it is. Like it's a the consumers are spending money they don't have, the companies are spending money they don't have, and all that is doing is just kind of, everybody is passing a buck that they don't have, and that's just going up, that's just driving up the value, or that's driving up the GDP. It's driving up the amount of economic activity that the country is supposedly generating, right? Which then inflates everything, because apparently we got a whole bunch more money, but we don't know where it's coming from.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I think, the way you were just pointing out, it's like, the intention even with these, in comparison to something more local like a Montgomery bus boycott, where it's like, there was like an intention there of like what we're actually asking for. And then pointed out the the petty bourgeoisness of the Target boycott, because I think in the end it's just more like we want DEI back, and it's just like, so if it goes back, then it's like, okay, Target still gets to just exist even though they don't pay their workers fairly, even though they have so many other things that's not necessarily great. And then if Target never starts to have DEI again, is it just like, okay, well, now we just continue to give all of our money to Costco, Walmart, who still doesn't treat working class people fairly? It's like, I guess to me, it's just the lack of imagination of like, well, what are we trying to like create in this big collective project that, that we were all assigned in, that didn't know we were assigned in? Like, what are we actually trying to create to substitute these things? The way you were talking about people carpool, like, what are we actually trying to have even as a substitute or a direction when it comes to these things? Like, even with thinking about sorry, I just went blank. Thinking about Spotify, right? And how, like I said, there was like this, people even just mentioning, oh, they listen to Spotify still. And it's like, literally, I saw this post that was like, you're a horrible person if you have Spotify. You cannot say you're this. You cannot say you stand for this. You don't care about humanity. This is what they do to artists. This is, and all these other things. And so I'm just trying to figure out, if we don't have a Spotify, then I guess the alternative is Tidal. And it's like, okay, you give your artist 20 more cents, but it still is like whoop-de-doo, and then like people, I've seen some artists who are like, just, buy straight from me, that are independent. And, even I saw this new thing of like this guy putting this thing in his phone, and we get back to people buying albums independently like we used to do back in the day, where you buy your one CD a month and stuff like that. And, but it's like, I still just don't like the framing where it's like, now you, who is a struggling artist, have to figure out a way to like, because you can't be like, hey, I'm a good person and I care about Palestine, I care about people, but I put my music on Spotify. So now you as the artist have to now have the additional thing of like, well, how do I step out of this scope and, and still get my product out there? And then even as the consumer, you're like, now, well, I can, even the $10, the $12 a month for Spotify, I was questioning if I should still be paying this. Now you're telling me I need to go back to like, buying my one CD a week, when it's just like, it's not like that anymore. Like, I guess it's just the framing of we have to come up with these things on our own, as opposed to like, how do we target the people who actually are in power and whose buying decisions actually determine all the effery that we're basically living in? It's just always brought down to us to like figure out how to, escape a system while living in a system. Like,
well, the customer's always right. So that's the mentality that people be having, is because consumerism is really just Americanism, right? Yeah. It's like, just like this idea that because like the power, because I have the dollar, because I have the wallet, because I have the purchasing power, that I have that I do actually have the power. Now, on some level, see, this is the dialectic about it, right? On some level, they're right. Elon Musk has way more purchasing power, which is to say actual power, than any of us, right? But on the other hand, like but what's also true is the vast majority of us, right, don't actually have, like, we don't have capital, right? We don't actually have purchasing power. So it's all comes back, I think, to one, like, people think that they're people have probably heard the phrase, right, like temporarily embarrassed millionaires. But there's also like the inverse of that too, right? Because it's like people have like this very, and I've seen it, I've been very online for a very long time, and I've seen it. People, it didn't always used to be like this, but somewhere around in the I would say second term Obama era, things got really weird, and now it's kind of like it's just the same sort of like mentality that drives like the celebrity fandom. It's all of it is like how you consume is a performance of your morals, so that kind of like goes both ways. So like if you're not like, oh, if you now let me be clear, actually, let me preface real quick, like I'm not saying that categorically there's no reason never ever never not to like boycott anything or anybody. I was a super big Kanye fan, up until about it was the MAGA hat where I just had to jump off. I just had to get off the train.
Yeah.
And I didn't look back, right? And it wasn't even, but it wasn't to a point of, oh, now that I've done this, now I got to go tell all my friends, everybody who I know is kind of like, oh, you still listening? You still listening? You still listening? Like, it's not like, what does that do really? Instead, like just trying to make me feel better or make me feel superior over other people, because of how they choose to, engage with their, like spend their time or, spend their leisurely activity. So it's like, that is like one of the things that I think kind of like really represents sort of the moment that we're in right now, where people need to be doing something. And there needs to be like the appearance of doing something. And that's where I think a lot of like this why there's just always like kind of like this pushback to like the consumer boycott, because people don't, if it's not voting, well, what else can we do, right?
Yeah. And I always think of like maybe it's a thing too as organizers of like wanting to be that space for people of like, this is how you can do like actionable things that aren't going to necessarily take down Spotify in one day, but gradually you get sharper on your politic from doing this work, and then build community and are able to maybe create some sort of self-sufficiency amongst your own community, where they're empowered to take charge politically and understand their political power, and that they don't need to have a lot of money to have a level of political power. But I think because there isn't a mainstream push of that, you have individuals that see an issue or see something that they don't like, and it's just like, what can I do automatically? And it's like this kind of like safe thing. Okay, I don't go to Target anymore, I'm participating. Okay, I deleted my Spotify, I'm participating. But like I said, it just always gets down to like, what is the goal of what you're doing, and then understanding the dialectics of how this actually stops. Because it's like, when you think about the things that our money goes towards, a lot of our money goes towards rent and stuff, but it's like there's never this massive push, or you never see these TikTok influencers talk about forming a tenant union, and advocating, something like that. It's like, oh, you need to let go of your Spotify. You're so selfish. You have a Spotify, but it's never, how do you challenge even your own living condition amongst your own, the place that you live, fight for like better treatment as a tenant, and stuff like that, which I think is more useful in, fighting this late stage capitalist system. But yeah, so it's just, to me, yeah, it's very interesting. And then even when you talk about like something like AI, where me working in tech, I feel like I see kind of how deep it is, and that a lot of people on the outside are not understanding how this has really just grown over, and how out of touch it has gotten at this point, where it's like people will think boycotting Chat GPT or just refusing to use. And I'm not telling people you have to use AI. If you don't, if you don't want to use it, don't want to use it. But how people just think like, oh, if I don't use this website, if I don't do that, then I'm contributing to stopping AI. But it's just like the fact that I work in tech sales and I know all of this is nothing but a bunch of companies selling the AI to each other and buying these large packages from each other. Like if I have a tech company that's like worth over $500 million, and then I decide to buy the Google AI for my entire company, like I've just spent that as much in a day as somebody who was boycotting AI on their own, would have put out for like, years. And so it's just like, and I know I'm not, numbers sharp like that, but that's what I'm looking at it as. I'm just like, this is how this is all, they're all buying from each other, and these corporations are all trading with each other. I have to have the best software. I have the best back end to organize my company, to organize my brand, or even doctor's office or what. It's like all these people, these, corporate companies, that are really spending the most money and competing with each other under AI, to the point where it's gotten out of touch for like a consumer. And maybe it always has been out of touch for like an individual consumer or even a group of consumers to be like, we don't mess with AI, therefore we're stopping it.
Yeah, I would say, I mean, and I not to be like super long, I think the one thing about like consumers is it's like really important for people to know the production of like the things that they use and enjoy. So like you should know, or at least understand, how the Starbucks coffee, if you drink Starbucks, how your coffee, how your coffee beverage of choice, how them coffee beans made it to the USA. And it wasn't because them coffee beans came up out of the ground that we live on, right? It was harvested, it was cultivated and harvested in the global South, right? So just like that, like we have to have like an understanding of just like how any of this, like where all of this stuff, like where it comes from, and understand like the actual material like production and the supply chains and the logistics that are involved. I will say I think the as it relates to AI, it's like really important, I think, that people understand that it's the and I agree, like, well, at all possible, don't use ChatGPT. You just want to give up your data. I mean, there's lots of ways, there's lots of other ways, better ways to do that. But I think when it comes to, I've had a lot of conversations about this over the last year, and I've gotten I've had to get like really educated about AI in the past year. And what I'll say is, and I think particularly like on the data centers, because I know that's the one that's like one issue that's like really salient in people's mind. First of all, it all comes back to the land. I really need people to understand it all comes back to the land, right? So the use of, I'm not here to like justify like any of it, but when you go, I think like one day I had looked up, there's Elon Musk's, he was like the XAI data center like in Memphis, the one that people may be familiar with.
Mm-hmm.
I did a quick Google search, and almost instantly, I'm getting half a dozen articles about, this permit wasn't signed, this city councilor was paid off, these regulations aren't being followed. And it's just like, oh, well, that's not a surprise, because all of it comes back down to who controls the land and who controls what is done with the land, right? So today, it was a data center. Yesterday, it was some other type of center, or a factory, or a plant. Tomorrow, it'll be something else. But as long as it's the Elon Musks of the world, right, being the one who are allowed to like subvert, again, democratic control of the land, then you're going to end up in situations where a community is not allowed it's not a stakeholder in how, how data centers are being used in a community, or being built, or being operated in a community. I think with being able to, as it relates to, like personal boycott, I think, I actually think people should be getting really familiar with AI, actually, because it's not going away. And you need to understand for your loved ones and yourselves of its capabilities and what it can and can't do, so that, just in the same way of how, like, we might have, I don't know, maybe some of y'all didn't, but the same way you may have to, in more civilized societies, we'll give, you might have like little workshop classes or like little, showing your uncle, your cousin, your auntie, or who not, of, okay, here's how you avoid these scammers. Here's how you avoid being like, we're going to have to do the same thing of teaching people how to prepare to actually how to spot deep fakes. It's going to be a best practice thing. It's not going to be a, we're going to win more than we lose, or we're going to lose more than we win, at least up front. But like, it's like one of those things where you really do just have to like kind of like take of, well, what can I change and what can I change? And the tidal wave of AI is not something that we're going to be able to change. If you're hoping on the crash to make it all go away, it's not going. I'm sorry, I don't think that's in the cards for you. But I do believe in that it is a technology that we all should really be learning, and be exposed, I think, to where the technology is and like where it's coming from, because look at places like China, there are avenues and opportunities. So I'll yield there.
Yeah, and I had something real quick. I know it's been a minute, Josh. Did you have something you wanted to say? Oh, I didn't want to.
No,
Okay.
no, you're good. Go ahead.
Okay. So with that, I agree. Like it's better to get familiar, and I think to me this is where I guess even I kind of struggle with the dialectics of it, especially as a person who works in tech. So it's kind of like, I mean, my company, like at this point, all these tech companies are to compete with each other, all using some element of AI, even if your tech company isn't an AI company within itself. Like even like whether it's they have a portion that's dedicated to AI that they're trying to sell people, or they're still depending on the workers to use AI to make the product better or to work in more synchronicity as a company, like it exists. So I unfortunately use AI every day with my job. So and yeah, it's a contradiction, but and even with the tech industry in general, I'm not necessarily trying to stay involved with tech the rest of my life, but that's just, obviously what I do right now for income. But even when it comes to situations that aren't mine, like I listen to my dad who's like in his mid 70s and unfortunately still has to work and is still trying to survive. And, he works as an architect, has to do business plans and all that stuff. So he uses the AI like he does. And I don't tell him that he shouldn't, but it's just one of those things that like, I don't know. I think people that are so, and I guess like from online leftists to people that just even on the ground that are just like no AI under no circumstance or whatever, or it's, I guess I even struggle with just like, because to me I think I always look at it with nuance, where like I understand the harm that it's doing, and I want politically for people to even like in DeKalb County how they're like challenging what's being done with that land, because it's a land thing and they're taking that approach to it, which I think is more of a political approach as opposed to just saying I'm just not going to use it, therefore it'll be over if I don't use it. But with those things, I look at how we still drive cars and we know that hurts the environment. We still do all these things that aren't good because we live in late stage capitalism. And it's not to say don't try to use it, not to say don't not try to use it if you're not if you don't have to. But I guess for me, I look at the elements of it that do actually help people in some conditions, but I understand because it's being created under late stage capitalism that it's gonna hurt the environment, it's gonna hurt lower class people, it's gonna do all of these things. But I still, I don't know, but I feel like people, like even if you talk about that nuance, it's just like I feel like talking about the nuance is being dialectical, but I feel like with that, it's like, oh, you're defending the thing, or you're saying that it's just one of those things where I know in a perfect world, if we did live in a socialist society where we were still working to advance technology or whatever, that we would have the focus or the materials to be able to find a way to grow electronically where it's not like, scaring or creating job scarcity and harming the environment and all these other things. We would be able to figure out what that is. But on the sides that it does help people, I just don't feel good to be like, oh, Dad, you shouldn't use AI because it's hurting these lower class people, or it's taking away jobs, or it's hurting the environment, when it's like, he can't, like do the things that he used to do, and it's not mentally, he needs, like, I don't know, he needs that assistant. He can't afford an assistant, so he uses the AI, I'm sorry. And so it's like things with that. And even with my jobs, it's like I could try to do more things without it, but it's like in order to do the job, it's like you use the AI. And I mean, and I use AI outside of work, but not because it's like I just think it's this great thing, but it's just like I am managing being 3 people at once. So it's like, no, I don't let the product do everything for me, but it's like, hey, if I can summarize something and put it in to find the errors or the better way, real quick, then it's just like, I'm going to do it because I have to, I'm trying to survive and do things under late stage capitalism. So I don't know. I just wonder, as somebody that is dialectical, like, I mean, isn't accepting that reality like what it is, or am I just being like too afraid to stand for some shit?
I'll say that you have to. Well, like people can do whatever they want in their personal lives. I mean, that is also like, can't nobody force you to do nothing. But I'll say that it's important that we understand the, when I say like, you can't put the genie back in the bottle. Like, I'm not saying that because I want it to be the case. I'm saying that because it is the case. And I think that we have to like really think about one, understanding like the technology itself, right? What AI, it's a family of technologies. It's not just the Chat GPT. It's the the text prediction on your phone, right? Like, it's the same type of, it's just, it's just math formulas and statistics doing backflips on a computer chip, right? And popping out, trying to emulate, creating a bunch of different like probabilities for, what the next word is going to be in so many words, right? But it's from like a consumer level, like none of that is, everybody could stop using ChatGPT right now and it's still going to be used because businesses are using it. Like, it's not anything that, even if that, it's just something that, not that I don't think is worthwhile to, everybody should be able to organize for, like, towards a political power. Go get you some forces, and go take on the magic, like the evil AI lord. Like, I'm for that. You just gotta go get some forces. And it's important that I think it's like, you have to, when you like understand, it's just a computer program. And so you have to think about, how can I leverage? I think about it like, I don't want to leave any weapon, any tool that my enemy has solely in their domain, so that they can master it and utilize it against us. So we have to like look at it as if somebody just invented a nuclear bomb, and we have the ability to make the nuclear bomb on our computer, on our iPhone, on our, like I'm saying, like, I'm extrapolating here, right? But like, we have to like be able to one, understand how they're using it against us, but also understand how we can domesticate it, right, and use it for, popular left, political causes and organizing. Because otherwise, we're going to be, it's going to be yet another wave of technological like revolution that we're just kind of like completely left out of. And it's like, and this is like the moment now, like, for us to learn it so that we can get ahead of it. And again, to protect ourselves, protect our communities, protect our loved ones, but also, utilize the good aspects of it, which you can get out of it, and leave the rest.
Yeah, I mean, I think, like, even like I think one simple contradiction is like, I was editing a clip of Dare to Struggle, Dare to Win, and I know the software I edit is the AI software, and it's like, I know how to edit videos, and I could spend, an hour and a half, doing certain things to, make the clip cute, and, or I could put the captions, the AI captions, or this to get the work and the thought out there, because like you were saying, we have to build, like, we understand that you really, fight it and fight these things by like getting on the ground and like challenging the policies that create these centers and all these other things. But it's like you have to be able to put the thought out there to get more people involved. And so it's just like, because we live in this contradiction of capitalism, we're also balancing work, family, all these other things. It's like, okay, well, can I utilize this AI to, help me make this, to go out into the world, to perhaps maybe have more people think about a thing differently? Or do I, because I'm trying to stay true to the thing that I'm trying to stick it to and I don't want to use it, be like, well, let me type in my own captions and put in, because I can't just be having AI take over my life. And you get what I'm saying? It's just kind of like, are you getting closer to the thing that you want, or like, making it harder for you to, have the time and energy to do particular things? And I don't know. So I think, yeah, that's one example that I just was thinking of. But yeah. Laurick, I don't know if you had something to add to that.
Yeah. To me, the dialect that you're working through is like inner transformations, relationship to social transformation. So, like, what are the things that we have to do as people internally, with our everyday habits, with our relationships to family, that turn us into the revolutionaries we want to be? But also, how is that related to the outside world and like actually transforming conditions on the ground? And I think it's hard to do that without consciousness. So everything I hear you describing, Cherie, is like a false consciousness, similar to the consumerism Stephen's describing. In America, we have this very individualistic, moralistic way of looking at things that doesn't actually ground in the real world and how it actually affects outcomes. So I think of my favorite quote about Malcolm in the OAU is he says, "We're here to create a program that transforms meaningless struggle into meaningful action." And so I think of all these things as like, boycotting the Target or shaming people for not voting for the local Democrat. All those things is just meaningless struggle, honestly. It doesn't do anything. It makes you shame other people. It gives you false consciousness that you're actually impacting the world. But how do you create meaningful action? So I don't think that, trying to learn how to live without AI is a problem, on an interpersonal level like that. That could be cool. At the same time, dialectically, both and thinking, Stephen is correct. You have to also figure out, how can we make AI work for us? How is it being used to attack us? All those things. So I think a lot of people get caught into, again, that moralistic, I'd argue Christian, very sin-based framework.
Oh, don't get me started.
It's religious.
So I am bad. And that is not how the world works. It's not even a scientific way of thinking about things. So, Stephen, I appreciate everything you've been saying. And Cherie, I think we run into that problem when people have false consciousness or are developing consciousness. They don't understand these basics of dialectical materialism, like we live in constant contradiction. Shout out Wahoo HP. So.
Yeah, because I think people look at it as like, oh, well, now you're saying just don't do anything. And it's like, I do a lot of things, but I rather the things that I do have intention. That's what we were talking about when we talk about these boycotts and kind of like how there's no demand. It's not really leading into, that's the thing where it gets down to doing something. It's like, do you want to do something just to do it? Or do you want to actually have an intention and an end goal behind what you're doing? And so it's kind of like, there's specific things that I do as an organizer, that I see the end goal, I see the struggle in getting there. I, analyze how long or whatever it may take, and contradictions or things we may come in to across the way, but I at least have an intention or end goal with particular things, as opposed to like, because I think that's the thing, is like it's like people will criticize consumerism or people shopping and be like, that's so selfish and individualistic and all this, but but then they take on that same individualism when they only look at the work as like what they're not doing and what would not, instead of what they actually are doing. It's like, well, I'm not streaming on this anymore, and I'm not going to Chat GPT, and I'm not shopping here anymore. And it's like, well, what do you actually do? Are you actually building community? And if you are building some sort of community, like, what is that community doing? Is it a community of people that just decide not to do stuff? Like, so it's still is like,
But
yeah.
and to Stephen's earlier point, I also like this is my point about it's a meaningless struggle. If you don't understand how the economy works,
Yeah.
you don't know what you're saying. So as Jared always points out, this is a consumer economy. If you don't have enough money, the economy breaks down, and it's based on infinite growth, which is why it's going to collapse and all these bubbles, as Stephen said, all at once. But if you don't know how the economy works, then you're just doing something to make you feel good. And that's where we come back to all of this. Like, are you actually trying to transform the world that's full of contradictions and build meaningful alternatives, or are you trying to feel good about yourself and figure out the easy solution? That's what I come back to on it. And to this point, boycotting tactics should be part of a larger organizing strategy. Yeah, exactly. I think Stephen broke down the Montgomery bus boycott, a very local place with a local organizing of alternatives versus target a multinational kind of corporation. I even wanted to tie it to things that will be resisted, by the way, when you do this, which is if you pair it with boycotting and striking, which is what was happening in the past, or you do boycott, divest, and sanctions, yes, which is made illegal by the U.S. empire. So I think about that a lot too, and I have one last piece that was coming to me about this. It'll come back to me, Stephen, if you had any thoughts. But
no, I mean, I just wanted to like uplift that last comment, like again, because we do have to like if you're actually in this to win it, you do actually have to think about of how a tactic is only as effective in certain conditions. So just as I can't categorically say, although I'm certainly not participating in it right now, electoralism, because to me, for my assessment, there's not the conditions yet for electoralism as a tactic to be successful or be effective. So we have to ask ourselves, what are the actual like conditions, the material conditions, in which using this tactic, and not even by itself, but this tactic, as you mentioned, like with boycotts and striking, like in what ways is this tactic going to be effective under like certain conditions, and figuring out what those conditions are. And then once you figure out what those conditions are, then you just work backwards of like, okay, well, we can go do this when we, get all this other stuff, figured out. So it's really important that we understand, as a revolutionary, as an organizer, like everything is if you want to be a strategist, everything has to be, you have to use everything at your disposal. But like if the goal is to win, you have to think about what is actually going to be like, what are the actual conditions for winning, and and starting from where we're at or where you're at, like what do we need to go to, need to do to go get there, right? So I'll yield there.
Yeah, totally. I think I just, like I said, I just feel like I want to have, I know we've talked about this in different formats on the platform, but I just wanted an episode of Dare Struggle to really kind of talk, because I feel like it comes up even louder when it's this time of year in particular, where there's just like a lot of consumer shaming. And yeah, just even with people learning more about socialism this year from the Mandani, people just, coming into consciousness of like, thinking about socialism, having an attitude or formulating an opinion of what they think socialism is or what they think socialists are. Like I've been also seeing there's like, you're a socialist, but you shop or you love to, I think I put that in the run sheet too, where like somebody made this post and I saw this on my timeline. I was just like, ugh.
Yeah, it's the meme. We live in a society, and it's like this very old meme. Like you use an iPhone, but you protest child slavery. How dare you? Like that kind of thing. And I always point this out, Cherie, to like show the error in the thinking. I keep saying that like some slaves bought their freedom. Like there were actually like you can't say that. You can go back to slavery and say this is where you get the Kanye West slavery is a choice thing. It's ridiculous if you keep trying to take the logic further and further back. Like you're against slavery, but here you are trying to purchase your freedom. Like it just doesn't make any sense. Like it's ridiculous. And it reminded me of the last point. This is an older debate Like that's what dialectic shows us. These things, the conditions emerge, and then oh, people are having the same conversation. So, Cherie, I know you've had this convo, talk about this in different formats. But when Kwame Ture does a lecture on socialism, I think at Howard University in 1975, he gets into this debate. And I show it to people, like 20 minutes of him and this dude saying, you can't be a socialist if you have a big house or make like $70,000 a year or something. And I guess, you know, got to adjust for inflation. But that was what this person was saying. And commentary is like, brother, that just makes no sense. Like, if I have a house, some people are going to be in different situations. Some people will have a house, some people won't have a house. But if I am a socialist, I'm going to use it for the people. And he just kept idealist thinking, you know, sin-based thinking, reverting back to no, you own a house, and under socialism, you can't have a house. You can't have a big house. It doesn't. So just
yeah, and that's what people are saying. Like, and I don't know if I necessarily like this word, this framing that people are using to defend, but they're like, oh, people think socialism is like a poverty cult or whatever. And I mean, I don't necessarily like to say that because I don't like feeling like I'm shaming poverty or anything. But it's almost like people just look at it, it's like you don't live in a society where you have to, you know, have more money and work to survive, to take care of yourself, and like, oh, you like, just because you're against the way the wealth is distributed amongst the workers and stuff, that therefore you just shouldn't work at all and go live in the forest somewhere because, you know, you don't agree with how it's being distributed and who gets paid for what there is. Like, I don't, you know, hate that the iPhone itself exists. I dislike that, you know, workers are exploited and beaten and the brutalization and in terrible conditions, and basically a form of slavery in order for it to be created, and that the money goes towards one individual as opposed to the people that are actually putting in the work to create it. So it's like, I hate the conditions and distributive wealth that I'm spending that then goes to the people that aren't doing that, but the people that are causing that harm to other people. That's what I dislike. I don't dislike the iPhone itself. I don't dislike clothes themselves. I hate that people are in these slave shops, you know, making these outfits, but I'ma still be fly. You know, I may thrift some, I may buy some new shit sometimes, but it's like, I'ma still be fly. Like, I'm not about to just not be stylish out here to prove a point. Like, I'ma look good. Like, you know, so I don't know. Like, I just feel like people like miss the whole point, you know.
Yeah, I want to make two quick points on that. I mean, one, particularly for us here in the States, you know, I think we have like an experience, especially, well, for those of us alive, right? For most people alive, the United States there's always been poverty in this country. This is touching on like the poverty, the point about poverty cult, because people do think that, like some socialists do think that, or even just people, because they do think we're about to enter a period where the United States has been like, poverty has always existed, but the United States has never been poor, right? But we're now like very much like on the verge of entering a period which is very unprecedented, right, for everybody involved, where the United States might actually be poor because of how, like, because of this, like this of this coming like economic correction. Things are not about to be the same anymore, y'all. Like, just in terms of how we function like an international, like, global supply chain. So that is leading to my second point, which is about, we have, when anyone like kind of like wants to build I think embarking on like building a socialist project, we kind of like have to, this is like kind of the issues that I think people miss with China in particular, is there's the Cabral quote, like, people are not fighting, people aren't fighting for ideas in our head, people aren't fighting for socialism, people are fighting for a better life. And a better life is, oh wow, if there's working hospitals, there's schools, there's school supplies, there's not school lunch debt, there's abilities to like, there's an abundance of things to actually like provide and take care for a society. We get it twisted over here because there's so much wealth. There's so much wealth, is very disproportionately skewed, but there's still kind of like the bleed over effect where we still think, again, we're all temporarily embarrassed millionaires, right? But we have to understand that there's productive forces, and the ruling class of our country has shipped those productive forces off, out of this country, and now we're about to be left hanging ass out, to where very much of like the basic things that we've all taken granted for are now going to be much, much, much more difficult or expensive to get. And this might be like not just this like 3 months of like COVID shutdown 2020. Like, no, this might be, the better part of the rest of the decade, right? Where we're talking like everything down from screws, nails, wood, like all of those basic little input things that you don't even think about is going to be now is very standing likely could be much more expensive, that like to get, because we don't produce anything in this country anymore other than bombs. And even then, we don't even produce all those because we get the magnets from China, right? So like we're about to enter like a very rude wake-up call, I think. And it's really important that people understand that for us in particular, it's going to look very weird or look a little bit different, because we're so much now like, or we've been so in a 20th century mode of thinking that, oh, we're just going to go get the wealth, take over the companies and redistribute it. But we don't even know that, or a lot I don't think know, those companies don't even have no wealth. It's fake. It's literally fake. They're passing around 80, like the same $80 billion to build these AI data centers, right? They don't have the money. Everybody's broke, right? So when it all comes tumbling down, yeah, we might be able to go. I'm not saying we don't go storm, Starbucks HQ. All I'm saying is don't be expecting anything nice up in there. We can still use it, but don't be expecting much up in there, because they don't got it anymore. The companies don't have it anymore. So we're going to have to figure out, how do we build, and don't get me wrong, it's not like we're going to, that you can just build a self-sustaining farm to feed 50,000 people like overnight. Like that's not going to, but it's going to be a lot of, self-sufficiency projects, networking across, collaborating, building coalitions, solidarity economies, all of that, because that's what's going to be actually like necessary. And that's what's going to really throw, I think, a lot of people out of whack, because it's just not going to be, it's not the old thing. This is not 2008. It's going to be a whole different ballpark, right? So I think it's really important for us to, if you're not getting ready now, you need to be.
Got to get ready. I'm just glad I got me a real dialectical to like be. So I'll stay ready. I'll have to get ready. I'm gonna be in the know, because yeah, I mean, I hear you, and I definitely think the way the world looks, we're already seeing it just looks so different from what we thought it was when we were younger. And I just, I can only imagine what it looks like 10 years from now. It's just like, I think the way people don't even think about how people will still talk about the black wealth being 1.7 trillion dollar buying power, but then there's still a stat out there that like black wealth goes to zero by I forgot, they were saying 2040 something. I can't remember but it's like thinking about that, and it's just like, if that's where black wealth gets, then like, what does it mean for everything else? What does it mean for, these people that we aspire to, and like we want to get rich like them? It's just like, yeah, we have to think about all that. So I don't even understand how people could hear that and then still be thinking that we got $1 trillion when I'm just over here like, does Elon Musk even really have that many billions? Like, it's like he can't print it out. Like, he is there, it's in Forbes, but is it really there though? So yeah, I guess we're about to get ready to wrap up. So I didn't want to know if you have any final thoughts, or final things you want to share, say you got going on with BAP, or just any final thoughts.
Whew. I think I really just, my call to action really is what I just said. Like, I'm not, like, this isn't just me trying to share information. There really is, prepare. Like, I don't even mean to be like a doomer, or anything like in that, like, I'm not being a doomer, but I am trying to be very serious about it. Very, like, if you haven't caught up on with, Cooperation Jackson's and Kali Okuno's Build and Fight Formula series. Please tap into that. That's actually like where I got convinced about a lot of this stuff. And there's a lot of like very helpful, practical information and resources in that entire series. So yeah, I would definitely Cooperation Jackson's, Kali Okuno, Build and Fight Formula series. If you haven't gotten into it, tap into it. And yeah, get ready, because if you thought this year was crazy, we are not in Wonderland anymore.
Thank you so much, Stephen. I really appreciate having you on. I know we'll have you back on to talk about some other stuff too, because you have a great analysis on a lot of geopolitical politics as well. So you'll be able to get it in the future, and it's always good to share space with you. See you soon.
Yes, I appreciate y'all. Have a nice night.
Appreciate you.
Man, I gotta get prepared. I'm like, Stephen got me really thinking, like, what happens when the Afterpay runs out? When the Klarna, it runs out. Like, they only gave me credit for so many. There's only so many more outfits, lip gloss.
The paying for.
That I could get. It's like, when it happens, they're not gonna re-up. The way he talk about the way it's about to crack, it's not gonna re-up. Like,
it's gonna split. It's gonna be paying 8, and then it's gonna be pay annually, paying blood donations. It's gonna keep till we can't pay no more.
Like, yikes. I think too, sometimes I look at my life and I'm like, I look at my life on paper and it's like, I'm like a messy business owner, because it's like, on the surface, it's like I'm getting all these things. And then I was trying to get some money because, I went between jobs or whatever. So I was trying to get some money, make sure I could have some money to pay my rent like next month. And I was trying to see if I could get a loan. They was trying to give me no damn loan. Because they're like, ma'am, like, they give me loan consolidation. They're like, you're $10,000 in credit card debt, man. Like we can't give you any more. And I'm just like, damn.
Yeah, but make another credit card.
It's like, but I think if it's like that for me, I know it's like that for these corporations, these companies, where on the surface it's like, oh, you see this, you see that. And it's just like, but on my side, it's like, I'm getting these things. I'm able to get, my skincare and get, like little fits and stuff. But it's like underneath, like, it's like this buildup, this gradual buildup,
Yeah.
And now it's like, dang. So, I mean, but I don't, I know I'm not in the same ballpark as like these billionaires and stuff. But I just was thinking about that as far as like, this kind of mass that we think inside of American empire, where we think certain things or certain people or corporations have it, and then it's just like a lot of it is just a lot of loans and borrowing and stuff like that as well. So I don't know, I just was thinking about that too.
Yeah, more Perfect Union has a series on Elon Musk, something like whatever his net worth was at the time, the $250 billion myth or something like that, and they just go over all the con artist job, the hustle and things he's been doing, the scandals he ran into. So him and Trump are very close friends. When I was visiting my grandfather's homeland, the Bahamas, I actually learned from one of the elders who showed me around that he owned Atlantis, the resort there, for a very long time.
I used to love Atlantis.
Exactly, but he was doing his scamming ways and his poor business practices, and the people on the island, even to speak about land and political power, like even they were like, yo, you got to get out of here. So they found another, billionaire owner who's still not great. But even Trump wasn't allowed to keep his access to Atlantis because of the mess. So yeah, I just highly recommend people check that out. More Perfect Union. Look at how Elon Musk scammed to get his money. But as Cherie saying, like, they all scam. When Stephen comes back, maybe we can talk about the whatever 7 it was called. What was it called? The Magnificent 7? Because even saying that the only reason the stock market went up was because of the Magnificent 7 is crazy when we were just talking about the AI bubble. So, I saw a bunch of people on this list who are all in an AI bubble right now, Microsoft and Apple and Meta. So, yeah. That'll be interesting to cover in the future.
Yeah.
Any other final thoughts? Anything you wanted to share?
I want to say that I stand in solidarity with the shoppers. buy your shit.
Of course. I started off like
anyway. Buy it while you can. It's running out. Get that card, get that afterpay. Don't let that lady shame you.
Yeah.
Buy it now.
Yeah.
No, but on a serious note, no, I think this just because I'm really thankful that like I didn't stop at only engaging with what I thought socialism was on like a superficial level, and that I did get into organization because, like I said, it's just like once you are in constant study and have conversations around this and have, you know, reading materials around this, you really realize that like that you have to be dialectical or else you'll just lose your mind. And I see it, you know, I meet people that, you know, are like, I care, but I don't want to join. I don't want to organize. But then I see them trying to boycott 5 different places at once. And I'm just like, you know, like I just, you know, and they'll look at me like, well, why do you still shop at Amazon or what? And I'm just like, you know, it's just one of those things where it's like, you can't, once people already have their mind meant up.
Right, no question. And I think it's tough because if people are in good faith asking you that, it's cool, but a lot of times it's to settle their own
Yeah, no, I'm saying, yeah, they're asking in a sense where they're like, you should, they're trying to convince me to not shop at a place. And I'm just like, you know, I don't know. I think for me now, I'm in a place where I can show them this podcast.
Right.
And really start to develop some thoughts about it. Because I could be like, oh, you should read some of this or look into that. But it's just like they might not get to it or have the time. But I just like I wanted to have something where it's just like, okay, this is me talking about these things, you know, and just like really, you know, because I feel like sometimes it takes something like this before you are able to be like, now I want to really read a book about it. Now I really want to read an article about it. I want to research it. No Fenty glossary if that's funny. No, I don't buy Fenty. I don't, but I mean, yeah, she's just not really in the budget for me, and I don't be supporting Black women like that. You know?
Oh wow, no,
I'm just joking. It's not really going towards a Black. I had to break down to somebody that Fenty is not really a Black-owned.
Right. Well, that's
like, people don't even realize that. I'm like, it's LVHM that, and then they broke off Rihanna a deal. Like every time she makes this money, she's making a white person richer. Like it's not just her, and even if it was just her, like what does that really do? But you know, but like I said, no shade. I mean, great performer.
No, well, you're right back to the myth of consumerism and boycotting and things like that. You don't even know the political economy. You don't know that Rihanna. And again, it's not a shaming thing that people don't know these things. It's just they don't know because they've been sold a lie. Rihanna herself advertises herself like it's a Black business. Jay-Z, you mentioned Tidal earlier. People would want to leave Spotify. They want to do something productive with that energy, but they're guided into false solutions, meaningless struggle, right? So they're like, oh, I'll just go to Tidal because that's Black owned, right? Oh, wait. No, if you ever see the famous picture of Jay-Z and Beyonce. Let me get this real quick before we go. Famous picture of Jay-Z, Beyonce, Tidal staff. Hold on, it's a famous image of this Black-owned company. I found it. Hold on. Of course, I have receipts for the people. There you go. It's a Black-owned business, y'all. Look at this. Look at this Black-owned business. Look at this. That's Jay-Z and Beyonce. That's the Black-owned business. That's the Black business.
And I thought I was doing something because I was dedicated to Tidal for years because I was like, you know, I have friends that make music. I'm like, they can get more money if I stream it on Tidal. And that is true. But like I said, when you think about the large scope of things still, you know, like it still isn't that much, or, you know, as far as what's actually being, you know, the time and energy that takes to make actual music and stuff. But but I was like diehard like Tidal, because you know what really got me was when Beyonce first came out with Lemonade, it was only on Tidal for a period of time. So I was like, I gotta get Tidal. I gotta see Lemonade. And like I was like, it's gonna be, you know, and Lemonade is still, you know, Lemonade is still
Beyonce's a capitalist, so at the end of the day,
not to take away from her capitalism. And,
no, I mean, but to your point, no, this is just, I'm just landing the plane with your point, because like she still put her discography on Spotify. If you go
at the end of it, it's still
trying to get paid. She said, "This Tidal shit ain't work. I gotta get my bag, y'all. Sorry, but still support my Tidal though. Yeah, I'm gonna be on Spotify if you need it."
That was the funny part, is that she still eventually, even as much money as she and it's supposed to be her and her husband's thing, she still went to Spotify. I think that should tell you right there that it's not doing the thing that you think it's doing.
course, we gotta keep people on with the evidence. I really appreciated how you talked about what we use this platform for. I also came into the platform to do that very thing, so we could share these things. Want to talk about some amazing resources. Stephen already got the plug for Cooperation Jackson and Rootwork with Tennessee's Ways. Building Fight Formula finale was yesterday, so if you haven't seen all the parts, catch up. Really, what do you do? Kind of follow up to this conversation. Renee, Saturdays with Renee covered a lot of the things we talked about, from Target to AI to this consumerism, Black buying power, all those things. So I always want to plug Saturdays with Renee. And we have Patreon. Although we've been remonetized, please go to the Patreon. If you haven't, donate, follow us there. We had a really amazing conversation Jared and Renee did with Luna and EJ, talking about socialism in Vietnam, which was really cool. So I know Stephen got into this discussion, and Cherie, you were talking about earlier, but to me, the whole you use an iPhone thing disrespects labor and disrespects the fact that if we could run this shit, and we've seen it with Black Reconstruction, we would have created a socialist project ourselves as Black people. And so when Malcolm looked at China, his whole thing was, this is proof of concept that poor people can do it too. So he was proud of China for their project. And I was very proud listening to what they talked about with Vietnam, ending extreme poverty, all the things they're doing for housing for the Vietnamese people. So just want to plug all our work here on the platform, and Dare to Struggle, Dare to Win. Appreciate you for letting me join you for episode 40.
Yeah, episode 40. We getting up there.
Yeah.
Oh, hey. I was just looking at this one little comment really quick before you said.
Go ahead.
It says, "What is debt of mint?" I mean, I feel like it low key is. I don't believe in my debt. That 10,000 is never getting paid back. I don't. I was struggling. I was making very, very low wages. So I had to get my credit cards and stuff. Like, I didn't get a corporate job till a few years ago. So it's like, nah, it's not getting paid back. Like,
no, the U.S. shows you debt's a myth because they in debt and they're not paying it off.
Like, why I got to stress over that where I know I could just run my mama credit check if I need to get a guarantor on. That's the generational wealth they talk about.
That's it.
Like,
that's
my mama decide.
We got to ask Stephen next time about that. You know, he said consumerism is Americanism. I want him to follow that through.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people, you just, to your point, like, where does this power come from? Why does the U.S. not have to pay its debts? Why is the American dollar worth what it is? And then we have to get to imperialism, the U.S. military being the strongest, seems to be related to the dollar being as strong as it is. I don't know. Maybe those things are related.
Yeah.
We got to figure that out.
Get into it. This was great.
And
thank you, Josh. I'm trying to think. I got anything coming up. It's just trying to get through the rest of the year. I guess we'll be on. I don't know if we'll be on next week. I don't know, but you'll see us if we are. If we aren't, happy. Whatever you celebrate, if you don't celebrate at all, be happy. Give love. But yeah,
notifications on. Check out our amazing programming. We appreciate y'all. Have a safe rest of your week and holidays. But we'll see you around on Black Liberation Media. Peace.
Only if you're willing to fight for it.
Remix.